All right. Good day to everyone. Today I'm gonna show you on how to develop a rich text editor, which you can use in your website project, any website project. If you don't know what is rich text editor, I will show you. So this is how it looks like. Um, Rich text editor, which you can edit text or content in your website, or you can edit the post in your website, the content of the post. So actually I already created one of this, but I'm gonna show you on how I started building a rich text editor using JavaScript. And then yep, okay, and then I'm gonna show you on how to set up first using editor Sublime, which we are going to use to develop. So this is the text editor. So there's a lot of text, actually there's a lot of text editor in the web, but I decided to create my own, a very simple one. So I started um, doing research about it, and then I found out that yeah, you can actually create your own using the document exec command. I'm gonna show you on how to implement this command in JavaScript so that we can build our own. So what are we gonna do first? First, we're going to, of course, I created a folder and then I name it rich text editor and then index.html. So we're gonna create a boilerplate HTML5. So we're gonna call it simple rich text editor. Okay. So in our case, if I'm going to open this folder, a second. Okay, and then it's created in desktop. I'm gonna open this into Chrome. So as you can see, it's empty for now. Right. Okay, so in which text editor, actually you can build it directly here in your index.html, but I wanted to be more um, not an object oriented, but it's kind of easy to plug if you like to use the rich text editor. For example, we have text area here, and then we name it it's up to you. Let's say text or test, say test text area, something like that. So if you're gonna refresh that one second, let's hide this first. So it looks like this, right? So when you are editing some content, it's really hard to edit or yeah, to modify the content. Like for example, would you like to bold a text, or you'd like to align right, align center, and so on, or if you like to add link or image, it's really hard to add the content in this default text area in the web, because it is very simple and there's no buttons or options to select. But in this video, I'm gonna show you to create the editor so that we can easily bold or align the text in the content. So we created already text area here, so it looks like this. So this exec command, this is what we are going to use. Like for example, would like to bold a text, so we just simply call this command bold, and then it will supply you strong or a tag strong, and then and in other browser it tag you a bold or B in order to bold text. And there's a lot of functions here, not only that one. We have create link, we have cut, we have delete, we have font name, font size, color, and so on. We have heading, like for H1, H2, H3, and so on. We have also highlight color. We're gonna tackle this one also. Yep, italic, paste, justify, left, right, and so on. So those are the functions that we are going, or command that we are going to use to build a simple text editor. For now, we're gonna use a basic one. So here, in my case, I would like to call it, like for example, script. Maybe we call it my rich text. Actually, you can use any name if you like, and then we simply, for example, initialized. Okay, and then you pass the selector name. So what would be, it's the ID, the text area, and of course we need to create a file for that. So okay, and then oops, okay, so well, now we don't have yet, so maybe we will create a new one for the JavaScript. Okay, so we will call it here, let's say we will name it my editor.js or something like that, and then we will include it here in the source. So my editor.js. So if you will go back to the browser, and then if you like to view source, you will see this one. Okay, so we don't have yet code yet. So what I'm going to do now is I would like to call my class or initialize myself like this. So if you put selector here, and then the editor is smart enough to know that you are going to convert a simple text area into a rich text editor by calling this command. Okay, so like this become a rich text editor with the bold and so on. So we're gonna put maybe 5 buttons for now, and then we're gonna continue and so on. Okay, we're gonna continue working with our text editor. So we're gonna create our class now. So here we already imported the GS file, and then I want to call my class like this. So once I imported my GS file, and I can simply call it like my rich text editor that initialize and so on, and then you need to select the selector, the name of the text editor that you want to convert. So we're gonna create this one. So create a function like this. So we're gonna declare it right away once the file is imported, and then we need to create a variable named self, which is pointed to this class, and then we need to initialize, of course, function. Then we need to pass an argument so that we can put like selector, like for example we like to add like width of the text editor, let's say like that, and so on, right? So for now, just like that, it's basic one. Okay, so we have initialized, and let's try if it is working. Let's add a console text testing, and let's check it here. Alright, so it is working. Once the page is refreshed, automatically it will lag the console testing. But since I imported the file and then I declared call the method initializer in it, and then inside the init, of course, we have lag here. So if you will check in the view source, so it's here, it's calling this one, and then you can see the code, right? So that's it. So what's next? Okay, so here what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna create maybe just one element for now. I need to reset the default element. Let's say command bold, and then the type of element, it is, of course, it is button, right? And then let's put it just B or something. We can use image later on. Okay, then we can just copy this one. Let's say this one is italic, still button, underline, and then we have stripe through. Okay, so still button. So here the label of the button is just B. Maybe we can just add a simple text for now, but we will add a icon, right? So something like that. So those are our default now. And then what are we gonna do next is I'm gonna insert a frame maybe before this text area. Okay, and then I'm gonna hide this one. So selector, so we have the selector. What's the name of our selector? It's test area ID. So we're gonna hide that one. Document get element by ID, and then the selector variable, which is the text area. I'm gonna hide this one, display hide. Get element by ID argument, blah blah blah. Let's try. Oops, 1 second. So bold, syntax. Okay. Initialize get element by ID args. It's correct. Selector style, is it ID? Okay. Text area. We're gonna put this one in the text. Press it again. My rich text editor. Name class. New function. Let's check. Token and expected. 1 second. Default. Oh, forgot to put the name of the type of the variable, what I mean. So we need to add it here. would just call this one inner.html, since this is the label of each element. Refresh it again. So basically it's hidden now. Let's check. So it's here, but it's not displaying. So when building a rich text editor, you need a div or a iframe so that you can type on inside the iframe or div. But in this case, in our tutorial, we're gonna use frame to do that. So we're gonna create so we hide already the original text area using this code, and then we created a default elements, which is bold, italic, and the line strike through. That just for now, but we're going to add more of that. So we're gonna create a container. So no, not container, I mean the iframe. So we're gonna create a, let's call it content editable, and create iframe. Okay, and then we're gonna name it, we're gonna set an attribute. Attribute name, maybe call you can use unique one. Let's say my rich text editor field. Okay, just copy that one. You can make it ID, maybe let's call it the same, and then we need to add a style or a width, maybe 100%. Okay, and then maybe border, I'm gonna call it solid 1px that light gray maybe. Okay, so we created the iframe, but we did not yet, if I'm going to refresh the page, there's no iframe. So there's no iframe will be displayed in the page, since we did not set where I'm going to place the new element, which is iframe. So we need to set if we're going to append the, what do we call this one, are going to put the iframe that we created. So now if we refresh this one, nothing is showing, or there's no iframe there, but still our original text area is hidden since we call this, so we hide it here. So we're gonna put the iframe before the text area that we hide for now. So to do that, so we're gonna append, we're gonna call it maybe we're gonna create a container div, so that inside our iframe, the iframe will be inside the div. So we're gonna create a div, okay, gonna call it So I'm gonna paste a new command here which we can use to append, so it's easy for us to develop. So we're gonna create maybe a to append before and append after method. So we're gonna use a prototype. So element call it append before function, then element. Okay, if it falls, I'm gonna call it a parent node. I'm gonna call it the insert before method of JavaScript element. You can check it here. I think it's here. Append before JavaScript. So it's here. So you can read those how to use this one. So maybe I'm gonna create my own method here, and we're gonna copy this one, and we're gonna call it append after. This would be the element okay, next to the sibling. So so we created the container div, and then we set it the ID, and we created this method so we can use this one. So we're gonna call it append after. Okay, after the document get element by args, then okay, after that one. So we're gonna create append after document. Okay. Okay, and then here we're gonna call it container append child, and then the name of the content editable. Let's refresh. Container append after function element. All right, and then we hide, created the div. Ooh. I'm gonna place this. So our container, and then we have this one. ID need parent node element insert parent node. It should be parent node, node, not mode. Okay. Insert before, after, next to the sibling, next to the element. So it's here. So this is our iframe right now. So we're gonna check. So we have our container, this one. So inside our container is our iframe. Okay. So we have this iframe we created, and then our original text area is hidden. If I would set this to black, so it's here. So we will just hide that one for now, since we are going to use the iframe to edit a text. Okay, so we created the default elements. We have the container, that holds the iframe. So this one, create the container. The container is div. When we set the ID to my rich text editor field container. Okay, so and then we append after. So basically, after the text area. So after the document selector, our document argument selector is the one we set here, which is our text area. So that's why after the text area, it created a div, and then inside the div, we created an iframe. So as you can see, text area, after we have the div, which is this one, and then we have our iframe. Okay, so what's next? So we did not yet created the, what we call this one, the elements that we set as a default. So what are we gonna do now? Maybe we're gonna make this iframe to become editable. So since we have this one, so we have the name. Yep, that's correct. So we're gonna make it editable. So we have what was the command? Content editable, and that's right. Okay, so we're gonna call the name content document, and then what was the name? Content editable. Alright, I think it's design mode, and then we need to set it to on. 1 second, let's check it here to make it sure. Okay, there you go. I think I saw now this one. Yeah, it's document design mode and then set to on. So we here make the iframe editable in the browser, and then here, second, object design content document. Right, so there's no error now. So here we can type now the text in our iframe. Don't forget, this is an iframe. So as you can see, it's an iframe. So let's go back now before we proceed. So what we did is we created the HTML file, we imported the my editor.js that we created. So it's located here, this one, and then we declared we called the class, and then we initialized the method we created, and then of course we set where are going to, or what text editor we're going to convert into a rich text editor. So we put the name, or the ID I mean, and then here in our class we declare my rich text editor, and then we of course we instantiate, and then we created a method. We passed the argument from here. This is the argument, because you can actually create, like for example, bold. If you like to disable the bold, so you can do like that, okay, and so on. You can add, so it's like a configuration, or it's like a options which you can add it. And then we declare the default elements. We have the container, this one. And then inside our container div, we created a new element which is iframe, and then we added inside the container. So we appended, and then of course we set the original text area. So basically we can set this above, so that once the program run, or once the browser is refreshed, it will automatically, it will first hide the text area, or the original text area, which is this one. So, and then we append the content editable, which is our iframe, to our div. So that's why if you look at here, this is our div, and then inside our div we have iframe. Okay, so that's why we call it container. Okay, so and then this methods is used so that we can append after or before the element that we would like to append. So that's it. And then now we're going to, what do we call this one? We're going to create the buttons or the elements maybe above, usually because in rich text editor, in the example I showed you earlier, it's above the text area, as you can see that, right? So above the iframe, what I mean. So we can add it here above the 4 element, which is the bold, italic, underline, and then the strike through. Okay, so we're gonna create a loop here. We call it all and default elements. Okay, and then maybe we're gonna create element document. Put element. And then the type. So when you create an element, you're gonna pass the type of the element that you're gonna create. So it's button. Like for example, what I mean type is like, for example, input type, something like that, right? So and then button. So that is the type. Sure, you're gonna pass it. So if label, so you're gonna put it label, or you're gonna use span and so on, or div and so on. So it's the same with here above when we created the div and when we created the iframe. So here we're gonna pass it the type, so which is the button. Okay. And then what's next? Maybe we're gonna append maybe we're gonna pass it element that append, or maybe if it's 0, greater than 0. So if it's 0, append before the content editable, and then after, if it's greater than 1, the first button we're gonna append before the content editable. So before here, so you're gonna show here above right top, left top, I mean. So that would be the bold button, this would be the first. And then if greater than 0, the next corresponding element would be appended after the bold button. So element and after this, maybe we call it this element. Okay, so we're gonna create a variable here. Okay, and then then we're gonna pass it element here. Yep. Okay, so loop and then default element, this element, if it's greater than 0, we pass the previous element to this variable. So we have the container now, and it's not create element here. Okay, so first loop would be this one. It would create the first element, which is the bold button. And then if variable L or element is greater than 0, if less than 0, so it will append before the container. So at the top left of this iframe, it will be added here, which is the first button, and then loop it again. It becomes 2. It becomes 1. I mean the L variable, and then if it's greater than 0, yes, it will pass the previous element that we created, so that we can determine then where can we append the next button. So we're going to append after this element, which is the previous element that we created. So in our example, which is the bold, so meaning we append the next element after the bold. So the next element would be the italic, and followed by, and then we append the underline before the italic, and then strike through, we append the strike through after the underlined, and then the underline would be after the italic, and then the italic would be after the bold, and then the bold would be before the content or the iframe that we created here. Okay, so I think and then of course we need to set the name, the label, which is the inner HTML. Remember, we added the inner HTML here variable in our array, so we're gonna call that one alt element and then inner HTML. Alright, let's try to refresh. So as you can see now, it's added above the content. So first button would be here, second would be the italic, which is after the button, or the bold. I think this is wrong. This would be this should be bold, not button. Italic, right? And then you can add more style, maybe style margin is equal to top would be 0, top right, top left would be 500, so it will be more spaced, and then maybe top right, bottom would be 5. Okay, that's good. So as you can see now, we have 4 element that we created. Maybe we can add more. maybe we can add, let's say, where's our can add maybe we can add this one, center full left, copy this one, I'm gonna add it right, okay, and then here these all buttons, let's say center or justify. Maybe small letter. Justify center, and then this one we can use full. I think the full is, I'm not sure what's full. Yeah, it is the justifies the selection or insertion point. Full, and then we have the left and we have the right, and of course don't forget the comma, that will throw an error. Then we need to refresh again. Alright, so we have 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 elements. But the good thing with this, using the class and then we have method, is because when you use the editor library that we created right now, it's very clean and simple. You just need to put text area, and then you just call the class that you declared, and then you need just that initialize. It's just like a tiny MC. If you're a tiny MCE, if something like that, then you just have like this. It's very similar to that one. It's clean. Okay. And then of course, if you like to create another, I think it's if you like to create another text area, for example, like this, and then we could call it 2. Maybe in the future we will add a multiple selector, but you will get the idea. For example, like that, you just copy that one and then you just put it here, something like that. It will generate automatically. As you can see, it generates 3 editors. But maybe in the future, instead like that, we can just simply initialize one, calling once, the method initialized, and then you can just maybe add array, like for example like this, and so on, maybe like that in the future, but not for now. So I just remove this one. It's very simple, just use the simple one that we created. Okay. All right, what's next? So here, let's go back to our loop. In our loop, of course, we have this default elements, and we have this, and we create the element based on our default elements, and then if it's less than 0, or if it is less than or equal to 0, just append it first before the iframe, this one, and then if it's greater than 0, then append it after the first element that we created. Okay, so if we go back here, we created the bold, we put it first up before the text editor or the iframe, and then italic before the bold, and then underline, italic after the bold, and then underline after the italic, and so on. So that's the logic here. Great. So here, as you can see, we don't have yet, it looks like it's not look like that good, because we used just label. Maybe we will use a font from fontsum.com, Yes. So we can load this one, and then we can use a icon like this. But we're not going to load to load this style sheet above here. We will dynamically add the style sheet using our code. So like for example here, before the um, created before the element are created, we can simply, let's say, load maybe load icons. I think that would be good. That is the method, load icons. And then we will create here bar load icons. Okay. Since that is since the link is an, what do we call this one, as an element, then you need to create the link. So it looks like this, right? It will be loaded here, something like that, but dynamically. So we will remove that one, and then let's go back to our code, and then we need to create our element. Document create element. What's the name of the element? That is a link, right? So as you can see, it's a link here. So that is a link. So you need to create that one, and then of course you need to set what do we call this one, the URL. So we just need to copy this one, the href, or the reference. Copy this one, put it here. But actually you can use icon image if you like. I would just use this one because it's easy for me to, to start the editor just using that one. And then of course we need real style sheet, something like this. It's the same, right? And of course we need to add a type. What would be the type? Would be text.css, and then we will load it to the heading. Append child, and then style sheet. So load icons, it's correct, right? Okay, so we create a link, we pass it the URL given from the fontawesome.com, and then we of course set the type and the real, so something like that, and then we append to the heading as a child. So it will display here, right? Refresh. There's an error. Failed to load. What do you call this one? 1 second. Let's go back here. I think it's correct. Back here. Alright, so as you can see, there is no error right now. So we loaded the style sheet. So let's check here. if you check in the view source, you will not see the style sheet is loaded. But if you're going to right click and then inspect and then check it above the heading, you will see that? That's the style sheet that we created. So if I'm gonna remove this one and then refresh the page, of course, that will gone, or that will be removed in the heading. So we're gonna pull that one because we're gonna use that one as our icon. Okay, in our icon now, we can, instead of bold, we can use what do we call this? I have already can use the icon here. Maybe editor, text editor, probably this one. Let's try first one. Okay, start using this icon. So just copy this one and then we put it here. All right, something like that, and then we go back here, refresh. There you go. Very good. So we have now the bold, and then we next have the italic, so on. So there will be a lot more buttons here. We're gonna maybe just italic, and then air underline. Let's try. That's right. Stripe. True. So those icons are from the font awesome that we loaded. So here, so if I'm gonna remove that one at the top of our initialized method, this one, remove or comment, of course that will not work. See, so it will not work. So we need to load that one and so on. And then next would be strike through. I'm gonna copy this one. Right, justify. So we have align left, maybe align right. Let's try. Okay, and then this one, this is justify, full justify, right? That's correct. Align center. All right, so all good now. So we have 8 element that we created. Okay, so let's go back. So we created the method. We copy the URL from the font awesome, which is free. So we use free web font, of course. Created the real, the text CSS, and then we append it to the inside the head of our page. So it will be automatically or dynamically added here. So, and then we call the method load icons at the top of the initialized method that we created. So as you can see, it's very simple. If you will, I mean, the integration is very simple. You just add text area in this one, and then the code text editor that we created right now, If you remove this one, of course that will not work, and the display would be the text, the default text area that we added. So this one, so like that. And then if we paste this back, it's an argument. You can implement it if you like, and then you can refresh this one. There you go. So it will automatically load it here. So now, maybe this is for now. We will tackle the functionality of each button in our next video. So in our video, we created the HTML5 file. We created the class that generate the text editor, iframe, the container, the buttons, and the font. So this one dynamically, and then the next video would be the functionality of these buttons that we created. So if I'm going to put, this is my name, and then I'm going to highlight this one, and then I'm going to press bold, this text would become bold, and so on, using those buttons. Okay, so see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.